Fanson.
Hey.
Hey. Okay, I got a question for you.
Oh, sure you do.
If you kick the bucket tonight, how would you feel? Now, this is a multiple choice. I'll give you 4 options. You would feel satisfied, like you emptied the tank of life, like you had a lot of fun, but your life could have, had more meaning, a deeper sense of meaning. Like you had real purpose, but didn't participate in your life enough, or like you missed out on life and the meaning of life, all of it. You just screwed it all up. It was just kind of a waste. What?
I have to choose
one
of those?
Yeah.
What if I don't feel like any of those fit?
Okay, if you died tonight, and you know what? We can abandon those 4 options
sweet
too.
Relief.
Okay, so if you died tonight.
Okay, you keep saying that.
I might be plotting something. Okay, just think about this.
Okay. So I die.
So you die tonight.
Okay, good. Let's just keep on that track.
All right, I don't know, maybe you just get hit by a bus and you're lying
Let's
there
get specific about how
on the road, quivering.
Yes, I'm
knowing
yes,
that it's over.
So my brain is still very much alive.
Yeah, your body
is dead.
Totaled.
Okay,
but now you're having those final thoughts.
Right.
Okay,
I don't want to live like this.
How would you feel about how it went?
Probably a little numb.
Yeah.
Definitely in shock. How would I feel about my life?
Like you're staring out into the bright light.
I get it. I understand the question.
All right.
Okay. So do I feel like, man, was that ever a great ride? Or do I feel like I just never got on the ride to begin with? Didn't even buy the ticket. Is it pretty much either of those and some other stuff in between that I was kind of listening to?
Yeah. Okay, well, let me just ask you, would you feel like you had enough fun? Like you participated in life enough?
I often ask the question, can you have too much fun? Mm-hmm. Because I think that's a real good question. There have been times I'm like, is this it? Is this too much fun? Well, because there's been times I'm pretty sure I might have crossed the threshold.
Which could then end up shortening your life,
Which
I
is
suppose.
why I often say, I'm probably not going to make it. But I don't know if just because I've, bumped up against that, have I lived the most fulfilling life by my standards, by what I would want. So I feel like it's a really bad time to be asking me this question. Because I think maybe a few years ago, I would have maybe had a different response. I don't know. I am at about the halfway mark. And I do think about... I do think about the end of it. And I've always sort of had a sense of my own mortality. Mm-hmm. I don't know why that is. I'm not sure if my mom I remember she'd be like, oh, when I'm gone. And I'd be like, oh, does that mean you're gone? That means I'm going to be gone. That means everybody. So yes, I feel like I would have a sense of fulfillment. That I had lived well, mm-hmm. that I'd experienced many things.
Yeah.
But I definitely have moments where I look at people who are engaged in very adventuresome, things that I've actually never really aspired to do, like jumping off of cliffs in a squirrel suit and stuff like that, right? Whatever they're called. And I'm like, geez, that's taken a big bite out of life. So if I compare, then I often wonder, have I really lived it to the fullest? But I have to say, I feel pretty good about having lived a life of intent, intention and purpose for the most part.
Yeah. So you've had...
Is that fair?
You've had your fair of fun, and you also feel like you have kind of done what you've come here to do a little, to some degree, being in the halfway point.
I have you could break it down and you could be do you have fulfillment in this area, this area, this area, mm-hmm. and there would be different answers.
Yeah.
I feel like I have had meaning in my life. Mm-hmm. There have been times where I felt like I have had great purpose in my life. And again, those are like kind of pedal to the metal. And then there's times it's kind of like eased up a bit. I've never been like just full of purpose and meaning all the time. And oh my God, stop me. Somebody's like,
right.
I feel like there's been a balance.
Yeah.
So yeah, just like when I think about that, quivering on the roadside with a dead body and an active mind, I feel like, you know what? You did okay, kid.
Like 4 to 5 stars?
How many stars are there to choose from?
5.
5? I'm going to go 4.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 4.
Yeah.
I feel like there's still more I could do. And
Right.
even asking me that question makes me go, geez, like I better kick it up a notch so I can go out on a 5.
Right. Because, we're in this pandemic and it could happen at any minute.
I want to have like a full human experience.
Yeah.
And I can say I've had depression.
Yep.
I've had euphoria, like and everything in between.
Yep.
So in terms of have I had an experience? Like, yeah.
It's
for
been a
sure.
ride.
And there's a lot that I feel like I've come to understand and still question about life. And I think that that's kind of the whole point of it.
Yeah.
So that's why I put myself in at a 4. But again, like last night at 1 a.m. when I couldn't sleep for some reason, I wasn't up at a 4.
Yeah.
So
Do you have regrets? Is that part of the 4?
do
Big
I have
question, eh?
regrets? I feel like that's almost a separate question.
Yeah,
Like
big one.
I don't think I do. Not any that matter. I don't know if I think regret is like such a big word. I feel like really, everything was part of the experience. I was, are there things where I'm like, oh, I could have probably done that a little bit better? For sure. But I don't know if that factors into the 4. Like, I don't think that's what takes me from a 5 down to a 4.
Yeah.
I think I'm just saying there's more I want to take a bite out of that gets me to the 5. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it. I think the only thing I regret in life is I lived in Australia for a year back like 1,000 years ago when I was a kid. And I didn't end up going to New Zealand. Like there I was, right?
That's a regret.
Yeah.
You could still do something about that.
No. Oh, yes.
You just have to look at that as a possibility.
True. But there I was for a year and never bothered to actually get my butt over, to the other island.
Right.
That's,
okay.
Yeah. So I'm just like, oh,
Wow,
Susan,
that's
what were you
your
thinking?
Regret.
I don't really regret much else. I mean, yeah, sure. I probably could have made better choices at times, but that's where I was in my journey. And yeah, that's the only thing I think I really kind of fucked up is, girl, you were right there beside New Zealand. Why didn't you go?
Right.
But like you said, it's still there.
Yeah.
it's still there. New Zealand is still up for grabs.
You can't get there right now. But
no,
it is still
that's
there.
true.
But I do. I mean, I think about like when you say, when we were both making, comments on that's just what happened at the time.
Yeah.
Like that whole idea. I think, the more maturity that I seem to take on as life goes on, I can look back and say, well, isn't that interesting? Rather than like, ooh, it's like, oh, isn't that interesting that's what I chose.
Mm-hmm. That's where you were in, I don't know, like in your consciousness and in your self-awareness, all that kind of stuff. Like Liz Gilbert says, well, that was a really good guess.
Yeah.
I still love that perspective on.
Or a real lousy one.
Yeah. Right.
Like sometimes I'm like, that was the best I could.
But it was. I think that's it. It was the
yeah.
best that you could do. And living in Australia and just focusing on my partying was really where
that's a choice.
That was my best. I was 20. I was 20 or 21.
That's having too much fun.
Exactly.
So much fun. You couldn't even get yourself over to New Zealand.
Exactly.
I like that.
All right.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks. Well, all this talk about mortality and regrets and I don't know, squandering your life.
It doesn't bring me down.
No, it's well, you know what? It's intentional. It's deliberate.
Yeah. Look, we all are going there. So
it is an inevitable part of the human experience is death.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good to have these conversations.
Well, and there's some who would say it's good that we die. Right? Because the alternative maybe is not so pretty.
Yeah, it'd be odd if we all just roamed around this earth forever.
Can you imagine?
Like, what, we just going to do this show forever? Like, this absolutely has to end someday.
Episodes, I'm sure our listeners are like, are they ever going to be done?
Are they going to die soon? Well, we're talking about death and all things like that because today
we are speaking to someone who puts their entire motivational focus, it seems, towards the idea that, hey, you're going to die.
Yeah. Then are you living your life to the fullest?
Yeah.
So today, joining us on the show via Zoom, via America. She's actually, she lives in Chicago or outside of Chicago.
Nice.
Is Stop.
My kind of town.
Yep, that's it. Chi-town. Yes, joining us today via Zoom is Stop Squandering Your Life coach, Jody Wellman.
Hey. Don't think this is just another self-help podcast. It's not.
Well, what is it?
It's still a hot mess, where we ask the question, is self-help helping?
Every episode, we discuss, debate, and sometimes diss an aspect of the self-improvement movement.
We want to know, is it all too much? Has it gone too far? Is it making us even more neurotic? Is this self-help or self-help?
You make a mess of me.
Hello, Jody.
Hey, Jody, welcome to the show.
Hey, well, thank you for having me here. Hello.
So great to have you all the way from Chicago. How are things where you are?
Things are great. It's sunny. It's freezing cold, but as long as it's sunny, we're good.
Yeah, that's a good attitude.
Yeah, I prefer, it could be cold, but I like if it's sunny. Like, that's the most important thing for me in the winter. What about you? Like, it doesn't need to be
You know what
mild.
I'd like to do? I'd like to talk about the weather.
That's very, you know what? You know when you're getting older when you discuss the weather.
When weather really matters.
Yes.
Do I need a jacket today?
Yeah.
Is it jacket?
Is it
Is
sweater weather?
Is it
Sweater weather?
Listen, we started the show with Susan asking me some questions about basically like when I'm dead or right before I die, how will I feel?
Yeah.
It got pretty specific about how I'm going to die. We won't get into that, but it's such a great question. It really gives you pause. Like, how do I feel I've lived my life?
Yeah. Like,
I'm not asking you how you think I feel.
although she might already have an opinion
How do
about
I
you,
feel,
Fanson.
Jody? Do I feel good about my life? Can
But-
you tell me, please?
Honestly, that is such a profound question, Jody. Like, if you were to die, like right now or tonight, whatever, pick your time, how would you feel about your life?
And so how did you come to create this blog and this 4,000 Mondays? Like, walk us through what inspired it.
Ooh. I think so much of it is this mindset, and it's that what you both just kind of got on to that little excitement of, well, wow, what a fascinating question. And, I've always had a little bit of a morbid fascination with death, not in a bizarro way, but I can pinpoint a couple things. One, this just sounds so obvious and maybe a bit cliche, like when someone you know and love dies, but my mom did pass away in her late 50s. And so, obviously too soon. But the thing I think of with that, one of the saddest bits of it is that I know she died having regrets.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's more than just the sadness of, bye-bye. It's also that she wanted to do things and had dreams and hopes and didn't deliver on them. And that struck a chord in me of that feeling of the kind of like the, oh shit, like I don't want that to happen to me. And then I'll be super honest. Like I think like if my default setting is sort of set to like the potential to squander some of my time, right? Like I'm a real homebody. I love just being at home, COVID style in my jammies and taking it easy. And so I know if I don't work hard at it, my life passes me by. And sometimes, fear holds us back, myself included, from doing the things I really want to do. And so
But maybe sitting and watching TV on the couch is what you really want to do. For some people, it might be. I don't know.
Yeah. And I say that is glorious. Like I have a healthy budget of TV time in my life. And so, yeah, I think whatever that fits for you, and it might be a theme that we talk about today, because there is no prescription that's like one size fits all, but yeah, I think it's this idea that the scarcity of time is just such a fascinating, motivating thing. And if we tap into it and not get all, down and out with the end, I think it can be, obviously, I think it could be empowering, or I wouldn't have built my life around it.
Now, do you have obviously followers and people that you speak to on this topic regularly, every day? Yeah. Is it a mix of young and old? And do you find that their experiences or their questions or concerns that they differ in some way?
What a cool question. They do differ. Yes. And I don't want to get all sciencey behind it, but I know that it's backed by the reality of studies. So they say that people when they're younger, we have more of an interest in, well, first of all, we're like totally invincible when we're young, right? And like death is not even like, why are you even talking to me about this, old lady? And so for younger folks, it's like more about the want for vitality and experience and novelty and learning new things. That tends to be the focus. And then also according to this theory, but like my experience of dealing with people, as we get older, our time horizon shifts, right? Like we can see, not that we can see the end. I hope we can't like literally see the light, but that we are aware that maybe we're in the back half. And then that's when meaning takes on more meaning. Like, what am I doing with my life? Is there purpose? And having connections to other people matters more than it did earlier when you just took it for granted that you had a lot of buddies. So yes, I think our priorities naturally change. And the people that I work with, those values and priorities do shift naturally.
So it is inevitable that we're going to reach a certain point in maturity where we sort of have that look back. And I guess some people would call it a midlife crisis, where you look back and you go, wow, it took me this many years to have done the things I've done. And I have this many years left. So there's like a real conscious thought to how will, like, I get to choose what happens next.
Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest part of it is like, there's this question I always ask when I ask people to get really nerdy mathy, like with like, literally I ask, how many Mondays do you have left? And when we calculate it, it could seem horrifyingly a lot or horrifyingly not. But it's how do you want them to be? And the implication there is that we do have a choice, right? We can be the ones to design it. And it doesn't need to be full on, full scale, massive life change. Some people want that. But often it is about a tweak. And yes, I think seeing our life in the perspective of it being this asset that is worth something because it's diminishing. Like there's like an economic theory, right? It's like, oh shit, it's worth more now because it's going away, right? Yes. It's scarce.
So the name of your website is actually called 4,000 Mondays.
Why Mondays? Oh.
Yeah, that's true. It's an interesting choice that you phrase it like that.
I know I still get heat and trouble for naming it the shittiest day of the week, but I think it's because I kind of want to disturb us. Like, all right, we obviously 4,000 weeks is what we have on average if we're lucky, but Mondays is visceral. Like Mondays they are generally the worst day of the week. Even when people retire, there's a funny reaction to it, right? Although often it becomes a hallelujah feeling. But most people I find are troubled by Mondays. And it is a relationship to the fact that maybe they don't love their work, or they might like their work, but they don't, it's sort of like it's an intrusion in the rest of their life they want to be living. And so, I push the envelope with calling it Monday to help make people really go, whoa, how many working Mondays do you have left? And how do you want them to be too?
At the very least, the weekend's over.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, how do you feel on Monday morning?
I've never had a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So Mondays mostly are just another day of the week.
Jody, it's funny. Like I love what I do. I just love my work, but I really, really struggle to get out of bed and get going on Monday mornings. I'm okay for the rest of the week, but honest to God, I don't know what it is. If it's just a feeling of overwhelm or just like staring it all down. But Monday, honestly, I giggled to myself this past Monday because we were talking to you, and I'm like, and here we are, another Monday morning where I just kind of feel like I want to stay in bed, even though I'm happy. Like
I've actually felt like, thank goodness the weekend's over.
Okay, well that's because you have 4 children that you're dealing with now. Maybe that's it.
I don't know. In my life, I've often felt, whoa, what was that?
Well, that's just, I don't know. Maybe God giving us a little theme music. I don't know what that was. That's fine. That's not pretty. God, but it was lovely. So you have this fun little calculator on your website. And so you get people to enter in, I think it's just 3 bits of information, like your age, your gender, as you identify as, and kind of a reflection on your lifestyle. Like, based on how you live, are you going to perhaps check out earlier than you ought to or later than you ought to? Are you going to do this right now?
Can I jump in?
Yeah, do it.
Okay, because this is where I got stuck. All right, because I was doing it right before we started.
Okay.
And so I got my name right and I got my gender right. But then it was like, based on your lifestyle, do you think you'll live less years than average or more years than average?
Yeah.
And so you could go lesser. So I scrolled down less, but I could only go -3. And it concerned me because I felt like I wanted to go further.
Oh boy.
I was
Oh
like,
boy.
is -3 as far as I can go? And what does that mean?
Hang on just a second. You wanted to shave more than 3 years off your life?
Oh,
Well,
Jody.
you're asking me based on my lifestyle, because I often say, like, there's only so long this energy is going to hold out. I've really burned it up a lot. So I just was like, why can't I take it any lower? Like, do I have the option at least?
Jody's like, this is something I've never actually been asked. Like,
I love this. I am completely enthralled right now. And just for you, I will design a separate special calculator for the people out there.
Death calendar.
You have burned the shit out of life. Like, I think I love this. Like, you've lit that torch hot, and you know that you're okay. That's a very special
I'm like,
category.
let's be realistic here. You know what I mean? That's the way I feel. I'm like, let's just look at it for what it really is.
I think I did do the 3 years less. I was, honest with myself there. I make good choices and then sometimes not so much. Anyway, so according to your website, according to your calculator, I have 1,854 Mondays left.
You have more than me. I have 1,490.
Well, you're a bit older than me.
And I took the 3 years
and you
off,
don't
too.
sleep.
Right.
Okay. But then Jody, you've got on your website, you actually have how many Mondays you have left, and you have 2008. So you're either younger than us or you're taking much better care of yourself. I don't know
we
how
could
old
balance
you
that
are.
equation. It could be, right? So if you think about it, I might have been overly optimistic. I might have given myself +3 years because I'm on crack and think,
See,
oh,
that's
sure.
mindset right there.
Yeah, Jody.
So I've already gained 6 years on you. 6 times 54. I don't know that math fast, but you get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jody,
Okay.
you got to be honest with yourself, right? You're still a hot mess, right? Like,
I'm a flaming hot mess. Yes. Well, I like this though. And I like to say that it is not a contest.
Oh,
like that.
You know?
yeah.
that.
You know, because you
Makes
could have think about the number of months you have left. And I'm going to do this survey one day. It's not fully formed, but there is a question out there on this. Would you rather live until you were 80, but live kind of like a 7 out of 10 kind of life?
Mm-hmm.
Or would you rather live 10 years less, but live like an 8 or 9 out of 10 kind of life?
I mean, 7's kind of a bullshit number. You know what I mean? Like when you gotta be like, how do you feel if 1 out of 10 and someone says 7? I'm like, take 7 out of there, right? You got to go either 6 or 8.
Okay.
Because 7's a bit like it's an on the fence number.
I think I'm going to take the second option.
I would too.
Well, of course.
But I'm like, don't give me, if it's 7 or 8, don't give me that difference.
Right.
I'll take the 10 years and
Yeah.
I'll put up with the 7. But if it's like 6 or 9, I know what I'm going to choose.
I just think it's so funny that you and I just respond to that in the same way. That's why we're doing this show.
Yeah. Quality over quantity.
Totally.
All the time.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the food that I eat, in the car that I drive, everything. It's like it's quantity doesn't measure up to quality.
Jody, we're here for a good time, not a long time.
Oh my God,
Amen.
they should make a song about it. And
It would never work. It would never work.
so you guys are then the poster children. Lovingly children with slightly less Mondays left than an actual child. But you guys epitomize then what you just said. You are the epitome then of the 4,000 Mondays ethos, which is, we could look at the time and you might get distracted by thinking that it is all about time because there's a calculator that just gives you the time. But no, it's about, again, what do you want to do with it? How do you?
Just because we said that's what we choose, does that mean we're living everything to the fullest? Because there was another quiz that we both were supposed to take.
The Astonishing Alive
That's
quiz.
was that the one?
The well-being assessment.
Okay.
Or there was the other guy that involves the quadrants.
Right, that one.
The astonishingly alive model.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's walk ourselves through that one.
Yeah.
You got that because you completed the How Alive or Dead Are You quiz.
I know.
Yep.
Now
That's how you got that.
Are you gonna do it right now,
I'm gonna do
Fanson?
it. How do I get there?
Okay, so you go to 4000mondays.com.
No, I'm like it's right in front of me.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for the quiz. Where's the quiz? Anyway, go ahead.
I did it. I took this quiz and I'm in the mid zone.
Nice.
Okay.
So what does that mean, Jody? Mid zone.
Got you. Okay. How can I, so without being visual, you were starting to describe a model and imagine, because everyone loves a 2x2 matrix. Imagine like there's x-axis, y-axis. And then maybe the better way for me to describe it is the idea that, we want to live wider, which is the x-axis. Wider is the stuff we do where we want to infuse our life with vitality.
Right.
So this is all the pleasure, the experience you talked about, like the food you eat in the car you drive, like the stuff that you love around you. It's the kind of sometimes it's the hedonic happiness stuff. Okay. So that's one axis. And then we also want to live, I propose, our lives deeper. And that's the y-axis. And that's about meaning. So that's the degree to which we feel like our lives have some kind of matter and purpose. And like we do have meaningful connections, et cetera. And like you can imagine, if you were to draw a cross or, like a plus sign, you're going to get 4 quadrants.
Yeah, I got it here.
Yeah, that then is where, so for example, Susan, you're saying if you got the mid zone, sorry, because that is kind of the equivalent of a 7 when you think about like, just give me one. But that means you have like beautiful shades of, living life in some moments in I kind of think where we're all wanting generally to be, which is in the category where we're above average with the vitality and we're at or above average with meaning. And then, there are some days or times where we're just not quite hitting that mark.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up hedonic happiness or even hedonic adaptation because, we both have talked about that a fair bit on the podcast. And there is sort of just like this place where you live, like this, everybody's got their like sweet spot. Right. And so how does that factor into the intention that you put behind living, let's say what you're suggesting, putting real intent behind the way you live your life, knowing that with hedonic adaptation and that sort of happiness sweet spot, there's only so many things you can do because some of it's genetic, some of it's outside forces. And then there's a certain amount, 40% or something that you actually have control of. Is this the 40%?
Yeah. This is the control part of the pie, for the happiness pie. And I would say that you have just opened the door for me in a topic I love about this. It's about novelty. So novelty is the antidote to living on autopilot. And I think that for many of us, the place we get to where we have adapted, on that hedonic treadmill to the great stuff, like the car that is just all of a sudden, it's just no longer delivering on that oomphy feel. Like once the new car smell goes, you're like, well, now we're done with this. Or even the good and the bad, we do adapt. And I do think that, we have kind of set points in life, right? Where maybe we tend to be lower on vitality because we're just not zesty people. Or maybe some of us are a little bit lower on meaning because we tend to value other things instead and don't design our life that way. I think I agree that we have some set points. And I agree that we can make some changes and that we will adapt to them. And I lament that is the way as humans we were built, is that we do have to consistently stimulate ourselves. And that means adding in novelty in different ways. That does mean that's where we have to kind of give a shit and put effort in and shake things up a little bit so that we do blast out of that autopilot zone where I think we all slip into so easily.
Right. It does take effort. It does. It's a real conscious effort.
Yes. Yeah.
Susan, you got something on your mind?
Yeah, Jody, you've got so many great things on your website, by the way, just like downloadable things or like little quizzes to take. Well, you got the calculator, of course. And so you have the guide to being totally alive. And of course, you're a coach. You're asking those motivational questions. And so just on the cover of this guide, you ask some really big questions. Like, do you wonder about what another version of your life could look like? The better version? Do you sometimes feel like you're letting your life down? Like you're not living up to your potential? Do you ever worry that you're not doing life right? If you were on your deathbed, would you be full of could have, should have, would have thoughts? Do you feel like you're not really participating in your life and are like you're lacking in some sort of life purpose to make your years worthwhile? Okay, so I'm reading these, right? And those are some serious big questions. But that question, like, are you feeling like you're not doing life right? Okay, for me, that may very well be the neuroses that we all have thanks to the self-improvement movement, right? We feel a bit judged for how we live our lives, which can then send us spiraling if we're not careful. So as I see it, if people don't love and accept themselves and see their life as a work in progress, these kinds of questions could very well cause someone to hate themselves in their life, right? They could trigger some serious, I don't know, feelings of shame and feelings of inadequacy.
Yeah.
Like,
And that would make me sad. Is, you know what? I get your where you're coming from, because I feel it too. And it's funny, I chose those questions as quotes from my clients. And you know, part of it is to be a teeny bit provocative. Like, I'm used to provoking people. Like, I'm like the freaking Grim Reaper half the time talking about death. Like, I already know that part of my goal and role is to rankle a little bit. But overall, I have a very strong opinion around the like the pressure that's out there to live life to the fullest. And like, that is the core of a lot of what I talk about, but I have a really big asterisk on all of it, where it is that, like, whoa, like, it's relative to what you want. And there is no right or wrong. And so your version of a totally alive life is going to be totally different than mine. And you might look at mine and be like, well, that sucks. That's actually dead according to what I want. And I feel like, I know you guys have both talked about this a lot, so I think we will see eye to eye, that there is a ton of pressure out there that we should be living some role model ideal. And I have this notion and way of looking at it. You know, I look at it like, there's an expectation that we have to live life in like big, all caps, flashing letters, like doing it right, the way that funnily enough, I've worded it that way, but according to who? Right. And so I say, we don't want to do the thing where we play small, which is where I think a lot of us do end up, myself included, right? Like, we'll play it safe because we want to avoid any kind of fear of risk or rejection or failure or all the things that we do when we just, you know, it's easier to live life kind of in a small way. I still think we should live what I call like a big L life, like capitalize the L in life, like participate like you really mean it, in a way that makes you feel like you're actually showing up to live in a way that you might not regret at the end. But it definitely is not an admonishment, or it's not about how you're supposed to look a certain way or be a certain way or always be in that quadrant that we were referring to, you know, that's called Astonishingly Alive, because that's just not real. Like, this is about small, subtle changes, in my opinion.
Well, and I also think, you know, there's the idea of living a certain way, and then there's there's the doing. Right. So I think a lot of people can even spend time on what they wish they could do or what they intend to do. But if you're not doing it, if you're not putting the energy in to make those things happen, if you're not in it to shift it, then it still doesn't make any difference. Like, you can't just think about it. You've got to do it.
That is such a good point. You just reminded me, there's this interesting philosophy in the world of positive psychology. And the idea behind it is that there's these things like positive fantasies that we can have, where we do dream about doing a thing. And sometimes we delude ourselves, like we're deluding ourselves all day long anyways, but like this delusion is where you get that little feel good feeling in the fantasy of like, oh yeah, I stood up for myself at work, or, oh yeah, I asked that guy out on a date. Or for me, it's usually, oh, I responded to that email, you know, that I have lagging in my inbox or whatever it is. You get that feel good feeling. And it does this really crappy thing where it kind of gives us enough satisfaction to then not actually follow through on the thing we were imagining.
Yeah. Really interesting.
Right. And so that is, I mean, it flies in the face of a lot of the positive thinking stuff, right? Like, just imagine, but oftentimes if it gives you enough satisfaction to not take action, well, then we need to slap ourselves in the face.
Right. Well, and I did just want to address, like, when you said you know, sometimes feel like the Grim Reaper, talking about this stuff. I just think if you want to talk about life, how can we not be talking about death? I mean, it's a part of it, and it's so taboo still to so many people.
Yes. The more I do talk about it now that I've kind of made it my full-time job, the more I am noticing that, you know, it's less that people don't want to talk to me unless they just don't like me personally. We're so intrigued by it. And it is, you know, denial is like a default setting for us. we're trained that way, but we're all also very fascinated with it. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
why
It's the big
slow down.
unknown.
yeah, yeah.
You refer to the Latin phrase memento mori, which means remember that you must die. And the object that is often used for this reminder is a skull, which explains why there are so many drawings of skulls on your website. When I first went on, I'm like, what's with the skulls? like there is so many skulls here. And then I was like, there it is. Yeah, memento mori. Yeah. And so it's just, that kind of, I guess it's an ancient philosophy of living with that major awareness.
It is.
That this is fleeting.
They've been doing this for years. So in all even in medieval art, how think flashback old school, they would do paintings of skulls, and they would even paint flowers dying to represent the death. They'd show bubbles in these old paintings because they will burst, or they would have timepieces that, of course, time runs out. And so people that, we've all been fascinated by the temporality of it all. And again, to the extent that it can actually light a fire under us, then I think that is, and psychology shows us that does happen. And so let's do that.
Now you have a list of multiple questions. I don't know if that's like a full quiz again or whatever, but all I know is I scrolled through it with full intention of, answering those questions. But at the bottom, it just said, go eat a brownie. And that's in fact all I ended up doing. So what does that say about me? But there were some really interesting questions. Back to the questions that Susan was referring to earlier. Did you know that on there, what are you willing to do is on there twice?
No.
Well, maybe it bears repeating.
What are you willing to do? And I was like, I don't know if that's an accident, because really that's, the action part of it is, again, what we were just talking about. What are you going to do? Not just think about, not just dream about, but like, what are you going to do? What are you willing to do?
Well, yes. And so I love how maybe these two things are converging nicely. Like the quiz, the assessment you're talking about. Yes. I know that with 68 questions, it's a doozy, but I am a firm believer in the fact that, you kind of need to diagnose a little bit in order to then take action and decide and prioritize. Because you guys talk about, lives being kind of a hot mess. And so for many of us, we would look at that assessment and be like, yep, problem. Yep, got to work on that. Yep, that's a problem. And okay, well, that makes you totally normal, probably. But without doing that, there's sort of a generalized sense of, I need to quote unquote fix things in my life, or I just know I've got to work on a lot to be more alive, and it can feel overwhelming. So the idea is, if you can just through this list, it's designed to help you identify, wow, this one is this one evokes something in me. Like, I really know I need to work on this one. And it could be around maybe finding spirituality, if that's been nagging at you, or it could be around eating better, if you've had too many brownies, which I would never say is too much, or, it could be, and don't say that's the reason you're knocking 3 years off your life, because that's not fair.
No, that's not it.
Oh no, that's definitely not it, Jody.
No,
but it was interesting. So I did it, and I'm happy that I scored 4s or 5s on a lot of them. But then there were some that I scored, lower, like in the 3s, and then I circled them, and I realized that they all reflected the pandemic.
Okay. Great.
Right. So I circled I make enough money to breathe easy, knowing my basics are covered.
Where normally you'd be like, yes, but right now.
Okay.
Different.
So I gave myself a 3. We're getting through it, Jody. We're getting through it. But it's not been as comfy, easy breezy as it used to be. Or I get to interact socially with friends, family, et cetera, regularly throughout the week. Okay. So in the before times, I'd give myself a good mark on that, but not so much anymore. Oh, here's one. I'm never lonely. Okay, no, I'm pretty lonely these days. Yep, I miss everybody. I'm almost always in a state of movement, standing, walking, taking the stairs, you name it. Now, Jody, I'm a physically active person. We both are. We work out. But then, because of COVID, you sit a lot too.
Yep.
There's no we're not hustling through life anymore.
No, it is very different.
It's very
I made a same note, pandemic related, from those questions that you were referring to earlier. What are you looking forward to was one of them. And I was like, prior to the pandemic, I was always looking forward to something, time with friends, dinners, dance floors. With the pandemic, it really is this lack of looking forward to, which is so invigorating. It's like one of the greatest things about life. Like they also say, if you're even just planning on going a trip, at the second you book that trip, you're already like starting that process of being there. And the one thing I'm looking forward to is hanging out with my son on Friday night, and where normally he wouldn't normally like hang out with his mom. He's 26.
He's that desperate.
But he's like, yeah, sure. Come on over.
Jody, you actually wrote a blog post about the art or the power of anticipation, which we are all lacking in this pandemic.
Yeah.
What are we going to do, Jody?
It's okay.
Help
ready?
us, Jody.
Okay.
Give us something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Mark, get set. Yeah.
Make a vaccine, Jody.
But a good one.
Yeah.
It's on the website. The whole point around, so the positive anticipation is absolutely massive. And I do agree with you that I think that's been one of the things that people have lost the most through these unprecedented times. Because I have a real comment, I think, on how the pandemic is going to give us a hidden gift, and it's, a little bit shitty of a gift, but I'll get there. Oh, see, look, you can positively anticipate what I'm going to say. But I will also, I just want to do a little shout out though, that for the pandemic, that as much as I go on about how this has fucked everyone's life up, and then people will consistently stop me and be like, oh, but actually like my life is a lot better in these ways. And so, yeah, it has like de-zustified a lot of us, but a lot of people are saying like the 2 hours I used to commute every day, now I spend that time like quality time with my son, or I'm cooking way more elaborate, cool meals now, or I was furloughed for the summer. I wrote about this the other day. A friend of mine's like, I picked up the trumpet and piano and gardening. And I was like, oh my God. And so I just want to say, that clearly some people are somehow making it work. And then my other thought on the pandemic with this is that, one of part of the model is about meaning. And it is just an undeniable truth about how meaning is formed. And it is most often born and created through struggle and suffering. And, it might just be because I am this eternal optimist, and I do not mean to put a corny, really cheesy bow on the pandemic. It's just true, though, that for those, especially those who have suffered the most with isolation, with anxiety, depression, with you name it, with the loss of jobs, the loss of lives, grief. I think we're experiencing a very bizarre collective grief right now, nationally, globally. Yeah. And that in itself, we don't know it yet. And I'm starting to see shades of it with my clients that are reprioritizing their lives. But what is going to emerge from this? Let's just say this time next year, I think that the meaning that will be elicited, that we will actually say, whoa, now I see my life in a different light after the vaccine or whatever it takes. That I think there's going to be such richness there. I am so excited to see what that's going to bring. And so, now I can actually loop it all back around to anticipate, let's anticipate how we're going to be. We're going to be, I think, just inherently slightly different versions of ourselves just because of this next year when we are able to look back on it.
Okay. That's something fancy.
I buy it. I buy that.
Well, they say what challenges us changes us. And so I guess we're going to get a good dose of post-traumatic growth, as the world of psychology studies, right? How we gain these powerful wake-up calls and such from adversity and trauma.
I'm going to take that bait because I am a big fan of the whole post-traumatic growth thing. And I know one of the tenets of it is this idea about appreciation for life. So what we're caught up understandably in the things that we know to be true and we want in our lives, like the ability to go to a new restaurant and all the stuff. But I do think that, we may not pause consciously right now and stop and think, I am thankful that I still have my life and I have not died from COVID. But I think that there will be a lot of time for that to happen into the next year and so. And that's the stuff where for example, unless we stop in a structured program or a conversation like this that provokes you to go, whoa, wait, I should press the pause button and stop and think, holy shit. That I think there's such value in that. And I do think that that's coming. Again, we have to stop and do that reflection and think about it for a minute. But if we do, I think there's going to be some good stuff there.
I can say this. One of the questions I also liked was, how would your least favorite people describe you?
Yeah, that That was powerful.
I was like, oh, wait a second. Let me just think about that. Or what's the thing about others that really annoys you that's really about yourself?
Because that's always the case, right?
Oh, that's a fun one.
We're always projecting.
No, and that one is the biggest buzzkill ever, right? Like, oh, I find that annoying because, oh, if I look in the mirror, it's me.
Yeah, that's a good wake-up call.
So Jody, I read one of your blogs and I thought it was interesting that you suggested that we do kind of like this deathbed regret test as a way to improve how we're living in this pandemic. Like we don't want to look back on 2020 or maybe a bit beyond, because it is probably going into 2021. We don't want to look back and go, wow, I just sat around and bitched and complained and felt sorry for myself, or, we squandered it. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that was a very powerful offering or idea. How do we want to look back on this? I don't know, this major reset as I see it.
Yeah. It's funny hearing you say that too. I want to come back to something we started to talk a little bit about earlier. Like sometimes there's this implied pressure. So yes, the point I think is one I love. Obviously I wrote it, I love it, but it's that, like, how do we want to look back and be kind of proud of it and know that we, I don't know, used it to our advantage. If it means that we had more time off or if we had to really get swept up in work, how do we want to reflect back and not regret, again, with that asterisk, but also if we're feeling very anxious, or if we're feeling full of grief, or if you're feeling whatever you're feeling, insert feeling here, do you then get to give yourself the permission slip that you get to just coast for a while? That this is the time where you're going to, like, I am getting so reacquainted with potato chips. Like every day now I have a different potato chip flavor. It's one of the best parts of my life. And it's just a stupid thing, but for me, it gives me joy. And so I'm checking that box. But like, that's an example to me where permission granted to do the thing you kind of feel you want to do until it becomes disgusting and gross. And that you got to make another change.
Well, you got to keep yourself in check.
Yeah.
But the idea that how you might contain this sort of mindset or attitude towards the pandemic really is just a microcosm for what you're talking about generally, which is if you want to take this period of time and say, I want to look back and be proud of myself for how I took it on, that's really a statement for life.
Yeah. Amen. It's so true. Yeah. And I think that this has given us this really concentrated time in order to get super serious or prioritize or figure things out. And you're right. Then maybe like, how much will that bleed over past this? I think you're right. This is like a little microcosm of fixation.
Well, and even like when you talk about the potato chips. So when it first hit, I was like, almost daily I'd have like a little scotch or a little mezcal.
I know. It was like we were on like this hiatus.
I'm on vacation. Like it's limbo. It's going to have a beginning, middle, and end. When it's over, then I'll just go back to like, life as I know it, whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. It was about 2 weeks of just.
Right. But that 2 weeks just kept going and going. And then there came a point where I guess it was one of those first walls of COVID fatigue, right? I've hit many along the way, but it was one where I was like, oh, hold on a sec. This isn't going to change for me. I have to change now, right? I've got to go, what do I want to be doing every day that's now mindful again, right? So it is just keeping yourself in check.
Yeah. Mindfulness, I think that, not to play on that buzzword, but that is really this. It's like being intentional. And again, like being intentional could be, I'm like, you could just choose a weekend or a week, or like, I'm just going to squander the shit out of this time because it feels really great. Like we just had in the USA, like our 4-day Thanksgiving weekend, and it was pure slothful decadence of nothing. Right. And like, I'm proud of that. Like, that's how I wanted to spend it.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Yeah. Gluttony.
Right. Yes.
Right on.
And yet, I mean, I'm using
We're on a
probably
break.
way of absolute hedonism in this way, but I think it can be, then again, if I have been edging more towards that, I'm having that inkling where maybe I do want to revitalize my life a little bit. And so that's when I think that if it means taking action, it, of course, it could look at that 68 question assessment about, well, where do I want to zero in? And so, for example, Susan, for you were just noticing some of it may be around the social stuff, right?
Yep.
And it's, well, then, okay,
I
well, what
concur.
would I do? Yeah, like what would I need to do in order to just dial that up one notch? Because again, this is not about like massive blow yourself off the charts, because that just won't be sustainable anyways. That's the stuff we do when we go like ditch to ditch, right? Like back and like I can't live like this trying to be social every day or whatever it looks like. So what is just one thing that might bring you a little bit of that sort of social joy? And maybe it means reconnecting just randomly with an old college friend, or a Zoom with your aunt, or just picking one thing. And this is the part that I find the most fascinating, maybe not of all, but one of the most fascinating things, is that the way that we're built, in terms of what it takes to give us some kind of a positive emotion or joy or happiness, which is really just like life satisfaction, it's often just the small stuff. Because our lives are just these collection of little moments, one after the other, that makes a day, that makes a week and month. And if you can orchestrate just a really cool moment, which might be a 2-minute text exchange with a friend back and forth who you haven't chatted with since the beginning of COVID, when you all thought this was just silly, like if that thing brings you joy in that moment, we just can't underestimate that has a massive impact on, quite frankly, the rest of our day. Because that's the thing where it'll spill over into the next meeting that we have, where we approach it with just a little bit more energy, or we then, quite frankly, then we're contagious. There's a thing called social contagion, where we actually then will give that gift forward of being positive, and then it is contagious, and people will then feed off that. So,
and also to remember that our lives are made up of the everyday. Like, so unless you're someone who is like, cliff jumping and stuff like that, and in the constant pursuit of adrenaline in that way, most people are sort of living kind of the same thing every day with, these little things that give us joy and possibly, move the needle. But for the most part, it is every day. So how do you do that and feel fulfilled?
Right. So I think
it interesting. Spice it up.
Yeah, it is spicing it up. And it's spicing it up not in a way that it doesn't have to blow your life up, meaning that you need to become all of a sudden, if you're thinking you want to get more active, because to your point earlier, we are way more sedentary in ways. We are more active in spurts, and that's what we're noticing. But obviously through the day, like I have a dent in
we all have a dent in our chairs, Jody. Yeah, like I'll do like a Peloton ride in the morning, right? And I'll be pedaling for my life for an hour, and then I sit for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I think that's
that's it.
My neck, right? Like I've got a major neck injury issue, and I swear it's probably a mix of just sitting around now and not being as active and fluid as I normally am.
It is. And so how to change that? Here's the thing is, I think many of us do that thing where we go to the extreme, where we think like, I have to now embark on this massive physical mission. Or for me, because I've neck stuff, I'm like, oh, I have to start my whole physical therapy regimen over again. No, I love the studies. And there was a new one again I saw in the Times, I think yesterday. I always glance at those headlines and just feel so good, where it's like, the heart receives benefits after like 6 minutes of exercise. Like that's not even a walk around the block. You could start to walk around the block and then come back home and still high five yourself because you did your body and your brain good, right?
Yeah.
It's not about all of a sudden having to strap on the new running shoes and go for a run. Like, no,
and oftentimes that's not sustainable. Oftentimes when it's that sort of binge attitude, and you may not know that that's what you're embarking on, but essentially, if you really, looked at it, if you stepped back, there's like these times where we engage fully because we have that feeling of like there's lack here, or I need to get in shape, and then you do it, but at such a high intensity level that it's just you're not going to sustain it because it's just not you. Or it's not like you have to find a way to incorporate it into that every day that's sustainable.
Right. And I don't know, you just made me think when you were saying that, this whole adage of what we're talking about, like the deathbed, right? Thinking about like looking back on your life. And I don't know if you're familiar with that book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. If you haven't read it, it's a good one. But thinking about like, how do you even want to look back on how you treated yourself? And you just made me think like, I don't want to be thinking that I was so hard on myself and that made myself think I had to go embark on hard things that I didn't enjoy or that just I felt I should do. It's that I kind of want to look back and think that I treated myself well, like that I did. And when I mean treating myself well is that like I did initiate walks and good things that were good for my body, but that I didn't feel the need to overdo it. Like, how would you want to be kind to a friend, and you wouldn't admonish them for not, and you wouldn't crack a whip behind their fat asses. They're walking down the street go faster. No, I'd be like, good for you. You got out and you got your heart moving and you're feeling good and you took a new route or you went down that back alley and like you had kind of fun looking at people's windows, but not getting arrested. And like, that's life. Like, that's awesome. And I want to live that. I want to be that without the pressure.
Jody, you're very refreshing as a personal growth, self-improvement thought leader. I don't know about you, Fanson, but I'm so heartened to hear Jody just talk about honoring like yourself, being true to yourself.
Yeah.
Just forgetting the shoulds and stop trying to reach these expectations, right? Like, trying to live this best life, that, which is what I don't know. It seems like there's one size fits all, but it's not.
No.
I just think you're so refreshing in your encouragement to, I don't know, just be, you do you, in a way that is going to perhaps leave you at the end going, yeah, it was a good one. I had a good ride. So refreshing. I just had to say that. Like,
thank you. I'm happy to hear about that refreshment because I do worry sometimes that there is an assumption that if it's about like the reverse, right? Oh, I don't want us to be dead. So I use words like astonishingly alive and whatever, but like your version.
Right.
Whatever you want. Yeah. And small stuff like, unless big stuff's for you too. Like I would never stop someone from making a wholesale big life change and, picking up and moving to San Diego and changing their life and whatever floats your boat. But for most of us, let's just like order Chinese food.
Right.
And be with have a good call with a friend.
Like I'm kind of having some kind of aha moment here where I think maybe one of our biggest issues here with our, I don't know, struggle, suffering in the pandemic is that we are craving the big moments, the big joys, like, the trip or the big celebration or the big gathering with the friends or wherever, we're craving those highlights.
I'm craving a lit dance floor.
Yeah, I get that. But we're mourning so many of these kind of bigger joys in life. And I think what I'm hearing from Jody is to like really savor. I mean, God knows we were bitching and complaining about how busy we were, right? How we didn't have time for anything. And well, life said, okay, everybody,
here's some time
here's
for
some
you.
time. And yet now we're not satisfied with having downtime. Now we just want to go out.
That's the hedonic part.
have the big
right.
Joys again. I don't know, but I'm just realizing.
But it will be like that. I think it's always like that.
Yeah.
I really do. Whether it's in this extreme way or just regular everyday. There's like, I want this and now I want that. And that's the ebb and flow of it.
Honest to God, hey? We just need to really embrace this interesting gift that we're being given. To just kind of chill out.
You can apply it to life. You can apply it to relationships. I mean, I think you must encounter this a lot, Jody, like people who are in relationships and the fact that I guess they get a little stale or they lose their, whatever it is, right? And then how do you keep that alive?
Yeah.
Same thing, like in all kind of relationships of life.
Yeah, because I suffer from the hedonic adaptation when it comes to long-term relationships,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Like you get the high, right, Jody? You get the high.
But everybody does.
Woo, so exciting.
And then how do you keep it going?
How do you? Jody, help
That's
us
exactly
again.
Like they talk about this transition from like, if we're talking about say juicy relationships where it's like you go from passionate love to companionate love. And then it's the same story about novelty and it, you could get as creative as you want, but it is about then again, that conscious effort, which I think so many of us, myself included, like date night is like on repeat, right? It's like insert any other thing in your life too, like the thing you might do if you have alone time versus not, versus if it is a date night, versus if a thing you do with a friend. A ritual can be really cool and warm and rewarding if you kind of like, this is our thing, this is what we do and we love it and we have fun and it still gives us joy. But when it starts to feel that kind of ho-humness where it's like, oh, is it like in every experience, it's like, is it adding? Is it just maintaining, which can be really good sometimes, like especially in a pandemic?
Sure.
Or is it subtracting? Is it subtracting, right? And oftentimes you can say like every relationship as a whole can either be adding or subtracting. And so in those moments, if after a while it's like the whole humness does take over, then I think it's oftentimes we try and attach meaning to things it's not a problem, right? It's like this
No,
like,
never.
No, I have no
But,
idea what you're
this
talking
now
about.
is doom and gloom. Like this is now shit. Like the label has been planted. Whereas it's no, you know what? Maybe it just takes a little bit of effort to say, like, let's just shake it up. Let's just get a little creative. And like maybe it means that to go back to the date night example, without getting racy, doing something where it's like, let's shake up if what we normally do is eat and then watch the movie. Have a glass of wine and look back at our old photo.
I'm sorry, what?
Wow, Fanson.
What?
I'm sorry, it cut out. I didn't hear you.
Class it up a little. Well, you do talk a lot about how anticipating does contribute to happiness, and so you're a big you're big into celebrating like anything.
Yes.
Hey.
Yeah.
Like
make it up.
Yeah, you just like you celebrate the 333rd day of the year.
Yeah.
I love that.
3 is my favorite number. And so I just get really into it. So for example, when I turned 33 way back when, I was determined this is going to be like the best year of my life up until now. And so I came up with a list of 33 things. It was called the list of 33. And so I really I did that year well. And then, so anyways, every year, day 333, it's just my excuse to have more fun and do more things that I might enjoy. And again, it might involve nothing that anyone else would find enjoyable, but fuck them.
Yeah, you do you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little celebration.
I don't know. I thought that was just very inspiring when I read that blog post. I was like, yeah, I just don't think and that was another thing that I put, not so great score on my assessment is I don't savor or celebrate when things are going well, or if I achieve anything. It's on to the next thing.
Yeah, that's because of what we do. Yeah. We're gig culture people, so it's like, okay, this is good, but I gotta be working on the next one.
Yeah,
I think about that for you. So I know, Susan, when we last spoke, like you've got a busy season, and if you don't stop and really appreciate and go, not appreciate, I don't mean that you're not grateful, but I mean really celebrate yourself and realize like this is a reflection of like the hard work that I've put in. That people want me and more of me, and doing that pause, and maybe you guys do it for each other, like really stop and do that. Hey, like you deserve to seriously cheers yourself right now and give into that. Those are the small wins that are worth way more to us on those, again, that incremental, like our lives are lived in moments rather than it being the big party or the big thing. The collection of your work that you all both gather and do with whatever the gigs are you're doing, those are the small wins along the way. And man, I am super mindful that that's all the stuff that adds up to whatever the perception is of a life well lived. Because it's not like there's going to be an end, like a finish line, other than death, but where you get there and you're like, I made it.
Right. Yeah. When is that moment that you get to go and win?
Yeah.
Like actually, no, it doesn't really happen like that.
You never just go, I have arrived.
Right.
Right. Because you're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Like this could be our 30th episode. We don't know.
No.
We could, I know we're around there.
Maybe.
Could it be your 33rd? Please say it.
Could it be?
Let's
just say it is.
Right.
Why not? And let's celebrate.
It's our 33rd episode today, Jody Wellman.
We can make it so.
Right.
We could like do a couple retroactively and just fill it in and make it 333.
But I know we've definitely had a 20th episode. Did we celebrate that?
No, we probably complained about something.
We probably hated ourselves. We probably hated that episode. No, but that's the thing. I don't even think we celebrated when we did our first.
Maybe not.
We're just like, okay, what's next?
Right.
Okay, what can you both celebrate then? What is a thing that you would both feel pretty great to bubbly it up?
If I get back into that pair of jeans.
Oh
God.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm spinning for my life now.
Are you like the Paleotonic or whatever?
The Paleotonic.
What is it called? On the eucalyptus? What is it? I don't know. Eucalyptical.
God, the COVID weight. That's fine. I love myself. It's fine.
It's fine.
Jody, you
I
talk.
think a great thing to do would
Yep.
be like to set an intention to wake up every morning and go, what's that one thing that I can do that's like going to revitalize or going to kick things up
Yeah.
a notch? Just like that one thing, whether it's with your partner, whether it's like in your job. Maybe there's something, I'm going to take a different pen to work today. Do people still use pens?
People
I
don't
don't
go to
know.
work.
I don't care. I'm going to use a pen.
Well, like, what's one thing that you would do, Fanson? Like right now in this conversation, it's like, is there something that you're like, yeah, I'm gonna,
Celebrate?
or just, are you inspired to do something different? Look at me, I'm snapping
dancing.
my fingers, I'm doing a little bounce in my chair, but like, what can we do? You know, like I know you both you and I are kind of like, you know, not living our best lives in this pandemic.
Nope, we're
We're
not.
we're hanging on. So I don't know. Like I'm thinking, I don't know. Like, what can we do? Let's just think about
Like, what
that.
could
maybe.
we do?
I don't know. What could we do? What could you do? What could I do? We got to think about this. I'm
Think about
fired
it.
up a
Can I
bit.
make an observation?
What's
It's
that?
really funny to me. Can I make an observation?
Yes.
It's really funny to me that the one person dancing right now, Susan, is not the person, Kelly, who has said that twice in our conversation that you're dying for a dance floor.
Well,
it's just
I
really
also
really
have a
good
bit of a
thing.
sore neck, but I was
Oh.
trying. I was like, no, and I was thinking about when I go hang out with my son, because that is the one thing that I'm actually so looking forward to. And I'm trying to like still, you know, live every day and be in the moment. But I was like thrilled when he was like, you know what? Maybe we could do a thing Friday night.
Aw.
And we're celebrating his buying a car. So
Okay.
we're also celebrating, but just spending time with him, just the
Yeah.
two of us. And I was like, oh, I'd love to just create a little dance floor. And I was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
That's weird. He's going to be like, Mom, no, like, no, you have to go.
no more Friday
But-
nights.
Right. But yes, a dance floor for sure.
know.
Yeah.
I
That
don't
would be
know.
great.
Just a little something. I don't know. I'm going to think about this. That's the good thing about talking to people like you.
Ooh.
There
Makes you think.
Is that polka dot door? What is
it
that?
does sound a little bit TV
Pokeroo.
Ontario like. I don't know. Yeah. It's the Snuffleupagus here.
Scooby.
I know we're wrapping up soon. Are we wrapping up soon?
We are.
Okay. I guess my last question is, because I thought it was kind of cool how you wrote about it in your blog, is about how, the role of money, how we deal with our money.
Really? We got to end it there.
Do we have
I
to?
thought I was just starting to feel better.
Oh, I just thought it was interesting that you're like, spend your money,
Yes.
but spend it in 4 specific ways.
And
I
I know
thought-
the money one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. I have them here if I put you on the spot and you're like, what the hell did I write that day?
No, you know what? This is gonna be a good test of my mental fortitude. But I have another. I'm gonna do that, and then I have another money point to make, which is that you know, the age-old question of like, does money really make you happy? And the answer is yes, up until a certain point, where it's you know, we have to get above the poverty line, of course. And actually, a lot of studies are pretty clear. There are 2 marks, and I'm going to choose the smaller mark just to help illustrate my point. So they say 75 grand as a household income
What's that?
is the amount.
Yeah, Jody,
remember that.
we took this Yale course, the Science of Well-Being course, at the
Yeah.
beginning of the pandemic,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that's what we did back
We
then.
thought, oh, we'll just take a course. It'll be over and we'll come out stronger, better, smarter.
That's right. We'll just go to Yale.
Have you
for
taken a
little while.
course since?
No.
No. That was it.
And I remember that. Remember they said after 75 grand,
You don't really
you're not going to be
feel the
happier.
difference. Yeah.
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 Interesting. Yes.
And a lot of stats even show that once you go north and beyond of the 100 grand mark, your well-being and your perceived satisfaction with life actually diminish. But so anyway, I just wanted to preface all of the money stuff with that. And a lot of that is just back to that hedonic adaptation, right? It's like all the money that you thought was going to make you happy. Well, like that's why all the lottery winners, you know,
Yeah.
just their lives all go back to shit. After they buy really gaudy houses, then anyway, but the money thing is like, so many studies have shown that if we spend our money on experiences rather than the items, you know, that's the stuff that we tend to remember because it is the anticipation part again. So this stuff all repeats.
Okay.
And, you know, there's this idea too around spending your money in a way that you can give. And, you know, giving, ironically, is just one of the most wonderfully selfish things we can do. And like without shame, like I think some people are like, oh, volunteering, is it really just for me? Yeah, who cares? Everyone wins. Like if you help someone else,
Right.
they win, and you get to feel good on your way home from the soup kitchen or whatever. So giving your money in some way or spending it on gifts for other people, it's this rebound that's just going to come back and slap you in the face with happiness kind of every time in a good way. Yeah, again, with the experiences, they say also, I didn't put this in the article and I wished I did, but whatever, regrets. I can take this one to my deathbed. I'll be okay with this one on my deathbed. But that if you buy yourself time to do other things, that's a goodie. So, for example, you may think, oh, shoot, can I afford the person to come in and clean my place? You know what? Find a way, because that if you're able to buy yourself that extra 4 hours, or I don't know how long it takes you to clean, like how scrupulous you are with your tub or whatever, but however much time it's going to buy you, as long as you don't squander that time, in a way that doesn't bring you joy. But if you use that time and go out for an invigorating walk and maybe listen to a scintillating podcast like you guys, that's the stuff that's going to bring you more in your life, and that it will be worth it to have paid for that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're getting a house cleaner because you want to spend more time with your kids, and you get a house cleaner and then you don't spend time with your kids.
Yeah. You're just an asshole.
It kind of defeats the purpose.
Getting
right.
Yeah.
I just realized there were a couple little, I don't know, they're not quotes, they're like statistics or something that you had on your page here. So one was funny or die. It says, if you're a woman with a strong sense of humor, you'll have 48% less risk of death from all causes. If you're a humorous man, you won't shave years off your life. But good news, you'll decrease your risk of dying from infection by 74%.
Yeah. It's so weird. I've learned more since looking in deeper into a lot of the studies about longevity and what it takes. And first of all, I just love it. Like, you guys have no right to say that you can shave 3 years off your lives because of your lifestyles, because you're so freaking funny that I think that offsets any of the damage you've done.
Bump it up. Yeah.
Oh, Jody,
right.
That is wonderful news.
That's wonderful.
Funny protects you. You've got serious protection factor. But the infection thing is a funny one, because I've since learned, in the world of lab research and the ways that they want to quantify, it's just really easy thing to measure. Like wound healing time and infection is an easy one for people to grab onto in the world of research. So it sounds random. Like, why would that be a thing? Like, also, do they produce less snot? Like, what are the other interesting random facts we can come up with? But infection time, actually, wound healing is a really big one, even in the world of like the science of gratitude and optimism. There's such interesting studies. It's funny that I mentioned snot, because there is a famous study where they showed that people who have a more optimistic, positive outlook, they've measured in this study where they injected people with cold virus. And so they did this knowingly, they were part of a trial where they agreed to this.
I would hate to imagine they got just
I know
accidentally just stabbed you with some
just jabbed with a needle full of
COVID.
Yeah, full of a virus.
So, in this control trial where a bunch of people are injected with, some kind of a crappy cold virus, the people who are more optimistic, as measured by the weight of the Kleenexes that they produced, the snot, etc., had fared way better in the health department that way, rather than
one
the people
way
who
of
were
measuring.
pessimistic, way snottier, way sicker in this specific study. I love the look on your face right now. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little.
So,
it's an interesting way of measuring.
You know what? And I'm sorry I brought that up, but the funniness is one that would be measured by, you guys probably produce a lot less snot. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I feel really good about our chances.
For sure. Yeah, no, things are looking up for us.
Things
But
are looking
I
up.
do think that all this talk about death, and because there's so many people who, fear it or have concerns about the unknown, I do like one of the statistics to leave everyone with, which is, be not afraid of the fact that you're getting older minute by minute. It says if you have a negative attitude towards aging, you'll die more than 7 years sooner than those with a very positive attitude. So along the same lines as what you were just saying, but also don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So much out there about the different acceptance styles towards death. If you have a more positive attitude towards it, generally fares better in your life in terms of your well-being, satisfaction, and of course, how long you live. So yeah, kind of open arms with yep, it's coming, acceptance, and most importantly, like, what do you want to do until then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been so nice to spend some time with you in our lives today.
And now,
Jody
Jody Wellman, it's time to play that game that often sucks the life right out of me. It's time to play Name That Guru. Yes, Jody Wellman, this is when we read 3 self-help quotes to each other, and the other person tries to identify what self-help guru said it.
And it's not always a guru, may
No,
I just say.
Sometimes it's not. Often with Fanson,
It could go anywhere.
it isn't.
But I have a feeling you might be able to answer quite a few of these because you're so knowledgeable on this subject.
So, Jody, feel free to play along with us. If you know the person who said it, who wrote it, you just you let us know.
But you
okay?
do need a sound.
Oh, yeah, we need a
as a way
sound.
in. So my sound's gonna be. It's like me dying. It's like a death sound.
Oh, okay.
That's mine.
The death sound. Okay.
What's going to be
I could
your
do a
sound?
choking to death sound.
Well, you are a little morbid. I like it.
I love it.
And I'll be like, "Ah!" Like I'm falling.
Like you're falling. Yeah. Okay. Are we all set?
Well, it's nice that we all have a theme.
We all have our sounds and our theme. Okay. You or me?
You.
Me.
I
Okay.
don't know.
Ready?
Sure.
Every man's life, woman, every woman's life ends the same way. It is only the details of how he lived and how he died that distinguish one woman or man from another. I had to say woman or man. I could just say human.
Yeah. Huh.
Every person's life ends the
Yeah.
same way. It's only the details of how he lived and how she died that distinguish one person from another.
I think that is Aristotle.
Nope.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Susan. You're wrong. You just fell to your death.
Aristotle. Plato.
No,
Socrates.
no. Am I that predictable?
Yep.
Should I tell you?
Sure.
Ernest Hemingway.
Oh, okay. Huh. All right. The human heart beats approximately 4,000 times per hour, and each pulse, each throb, each palpitation is a trophy engraved with the words, "You are still alive. You are still alive. Act like it."
My goodness, that's way more powerful. Oh, yes.
I think that was Jody.
Choking Jody.
Yes, Jody.
Rudy Francisco.
That's right, Jody Wellman. I got it off
Ooh.
Jody's website.
So good.
So I was confident. I was pointing at you there on the screen. I'm like, she's going to know this one.
Great quote.
Yeah, it got me.
All right. Me?
You.
Okay. Don't get too excited. To the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure.
Sylvia Brown.
Nope. I didn't hear you falling.
Sylvia Brown.
No. Writer, again,
Mm-hmm.
of a very popular series,
Okay.
movie, trilogy. Woman.
Yeah.
To the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure.
Who wrote Harry Potter? I can't remember her friggin' name. Her.
And she was rejected forever before she got accepted, which is so inspiring.
I know.
Yeah, she's
She's amazing.
yeah. Is that
Really?
how it-
You have no, yeah.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to make a sound? I'll give it to both of you. Ready? Go. Everybody's dying. J.K. Rowling. Very
J.K.
good.
Rowling. Wow.
Moving on.
I could not come up with her name. Anyway, push yourself to do more and to experience more. Harness your energy to start expanding your dreams. Yes, expand your dreams. Don't accept a life of mediocrity when you hold such infinite potential within the fortress of your mind. Dare to tap into your greatness. A little hint here is
Dare and greatness.
that he is Canadian. Okay, and I will I will share the book that he wrote that he's famous for. He wrote the book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
Oh, I've read that book. I should know who this is.
You read that book?
I have.
Oh my God.
I know.
Maybe we should do a,
It's not really a self-help book. I mean,
Is
like,
it?
yeah, it is. It is.
maybe we do an episode on it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Whoa.
Yeah, what's his name?
But what is his
Oh
name?
my
Who said it,
gosh.
Fanson?
Choking
Is it
Jody.
Sharma?
Robin.
I forget the.
Right, yeah.
Oh.
Robin
Good job.
Sharma. That's
Good
right,
job.
Jody.
Jeez, I couldn't remember that.
Give you a half point for that.
All right. And points don't matter.
That's right. It's not a contest.
It's not. Okay, here we go.
It sort of is right now.
They say you die twice. One time when you stop breathing, and a second time a bit later on when somebody says your name for the last time.
Just got shivers.
Oh my gosh, eh? That's like how you lived your life and how you're remembered. And
Oh, this is a lot.
it is.
Is it time for a cocktail?
Let's celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate the fact that we are still alive after all this.
This person has one name and we don't know who he or she is, but we know his or her images, his or her art.
Oh.
Banksy?
I didn't hear you choking. Thank you.
I just
Choking
wanna,
Jody, go
I
ahead.
just want to watch Jody. That sounded weird. Jody choking.
Oh God, Jode, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Never mind, let's not get started. Okay, sorry, we digress. Your answer, please.
Preceded by the choking sound.
Yes.
Yes.
Banksy?
Yes, it is Banksy.
Oh yeah, all right, cool. All
Yeah.
right. My last one. Our happiness reflects the degree to which we feel that our lives have value, impact, and purpose. She is
I just wanted my turn.
yes,
I don't know.
Benson.
the
You have no
answer.
idea.
No.
She's a sociologist. She wrote the book. Maybe Jody, you're familiar with this book. It's called The Sweet Spot.
Mm.
I have read it. It's very good. This woman is a very good writer.
Wow.
Her name is Christine Carter.
Oh, I don't know her.
Yeah, yeah. So I think Jody won that one.
Oh, for sure, hands down, hands.
I mean,
down.
I feel like you let your guest win, which I just want to thank you.
No, we don't do that.
No,
We do not. We
No,
don't
we're just
soften
terrible.
for our
We're just
guests.
terrible
Yeah,
at
we
it.
just don't do this well.
Before we let you go, Jody, we'll mention that on December 17th, you are doing a webinar titled "Let's Bury 2020 Alive,"
Oh yes.
which people can register for. I have registered. That will be very interesting.
I'm on it. I'm on it.
Yep, Fanson's going to register too. And in January, you're launching an online course called "How to Live Like You Mean It."
Guys, these are things to look forward to.
That's true.
Yes.
Look at that.
Look at that. One in December, one in January. You're set. Your
That's
months
amazing.
are set.
Horizon. Fantastic.
Yeah. So Jody, the website is 4000mondays.com. And on Instagram, it's 4000 Mondays, right?
Yes, that sounds right.
All right.
Keeps it pretty simple.
If it sounds good to you, that's enough. Is there any other social
Anywhere else
media?
we can find you.
Yeah. Like how do we creep you further?
You know what? Those two will work just fine.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook somewhere, but I'm sure that you'll find me through those other channels and have some fun and take the test, see where, how alive or dead you are.
Highly recommend.
I really do. I recommend going to 4000mondays.com and
Get in there,
downloading and
assess yourself,
and doing the calculator and all.
and
Yeah.
reach out to Jody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jody Wellman, this has been
Thank you.
an
so
absolute
much.
pleasure.
You guys are amazing. And I now feel like I've had a cheek and ab workout from laughing. So I'm good for the week.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks
We
for being with
will
us.
Be in touch.
Yeah,
We'll
and-
be at your webinars and
Oh yeah. No, we're on to you now. Mhm.
Good.
It was lots of
Cool.
fun. And Fanson, it was so good to see you again.
You
I would just want to take a moment
Life's
to
little pleasures.
celebrate, savor,
You.
honor these moments with you.
They really
and
are
doing,
special.
And doing this show with you. It's always
It gives us something to look forward to.
it does.
It's something to break up the monotony.
It gets us out of the
It
house.
sure does.
But yeah, it's always fun, and we thank the listeners for tuning in. Until next time,
You're Susan Stewart.
and you're Kelly Fanson,
And we're still a hot mess. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Purple Jade Wellness Center, for your support. Thanks also to Monkey Junk, the Juno Award-winning blues band consisting of some of the best people and musicians we know. We'd also like to thank and give a 3-minute hug, because self-help says that's more meaningful, to the Podplant and Mike Wixon.
And hey, why not subscribe or follow our show? And please, for the love of Oprah, give us a rating and review on your iPhone podcast app. And if you're into social media, you can find us on Instagram at Still a Hot Mess Podcast, and like us on Facebook at Still a Hot Mess. And thank you, Fanson.
And thank you, Susan.
You make a mess of me.